Welcome to the game. This is the show where we go play by play analyzing the game of politics. Today we have an exciting show with an exciting lineup of guests, starting with Cesar Grajales. Cesar Grajales is the host of the podcast El Coliseo Político con Cesar Grajales. He's also the president and founder of Red Latina Network. Cesar, I want to welcome you to the show. How are you today?
Very good, my friend. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. We also have Miguel Leal. Miguel is a political analyst. He's in Mission, Texas. He's the senior pastor at Iglesia, Templo de Dios, where he's been in the area for about 38 years. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Hey, Wadi. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Great to have you both. We have an exciting lineup of topics. We're going to start with the headlines. Trump and Putin to meet in Alaska this Friday. Now, this war with Ukraine has been going on for several years now. It's been something that the Biden administration for years, many have said, failed to take the needed actions or to take the needed strong approach against Putin. Many people have seen Trump as that individual who can come in a little bit more of a stronger, manaduro, as they say. However, we are about 7 months, 8 months into the Trump presidency. Not much has moved. There has been a frustration coming from this administration on the lack of sort of negotiation that Putin has been willing to do. I want to start with you, Cesar. This meeting, it's going to be a very unique meeting in the sense, again, in the midst of a war between Russia and Ukraine, there already have been signals coming from Putin saying that what he wants is two main territories, two large territories that are part of Ukraine that are currently occupied by Russia in the middle of the war. Even Trump has talked that part of the negotiation might be swapping of land. Cesar, I want to ask you this report. How important is this meeting between Trump and Russia? Is this the meeting that could finalize the war? What's the expectation coming out of it? Just a ceasefire, terms? What's your opinion here?
President Trump has said that in 2 minutes he will find out if Putin really wants peace between Ukraine and Russia. And I think that's essential. Let's not forget that back in 1994, something like that, Ukraine and Russia signed a peace deal, peace accord, precisely, and United States was part of that agreement, where they say that they will never invade Ukraine. And they already did it twice, once with President Obama, and then obviously the conflict that we have now that happened during President Biden. I never believe in this kind of people. I never trust these people, Putin, or people who are coming from the communist world, people who are coming from the radical left. Let's not forget that because you see Putin, well-dressed, a gentleman, don't forget his past. Where is he coming from? What really he wants? He wants organize again the former Soviet Union. That's his main goal. But also, let's not forget who is to blame about what is happening in Ukraine. This is my opinion. Is that someone like Putin, he reads people, he reads countries, he reads presidents, and he saw that Europe was becoming a weak continent when they implemented these crazy ambientalist policies that made Europe dependent on Russia for gas. They needed gas to survive. So that made Russia stronger. And the second component is that they never invested really in their military or the armies. So he saw the opportunity to invade Ukraine, start this conflict. Now, let's get to today. Reality is that also, when you see the polls, Ukraine people, more than 50%, they want the conflict on the war to end. But also, they don't want, over 80%, I think so, Ukrainians, they don't want to the Ukrainian government to cede more or to give more terrain to Russia. So the difficult point is that potentially Russia wants to keep all the terrains that they already invaded. Ukraine wants to in the terrains that became, and they say is our terrain. We need to get it back to sign the peace accord. And President Trump wants to finish this for two reasons, in my opinion, too. Is because he promised that, and he said, and it was part of his campaign, that he would finish this conflict in 24 hours and in 7 months. But also because, in terms of political strategy and foreign affairs strategy, United States have a bigger or another enemy, which is big, is China, Asia, and they want them to relocate resources in that area. And as long as Russia is still a problem and still potential escalate this conflict bigger, the United States needs to stay there. Like they really cannot separate from the conflict. But I think what they want to do is finish this. I think in case of Russia and Ukraine, they probably Ukraine won't have everything they want. Russia that they won't have everything they want if they really want to finish the war. But the reality too is that the United States wants to focus on what is going on in Asia, and for that they need to relocate the resources. They can't sustain many conflicts around the world.
Yeah, that's very true, Cesar. And we've talked about it here. When it comes to the Ukraine-Russia war, many times we fail to forget that it's not that Ukraine for the longest time has been a strategic ally of the United States. It's not part of NATO. It's not a country in which we have a significant trade policies with. It's not that we do major commerce with them. It's almost secondary, a strategic ally in the sense that it's close to NATO countries. It's also sort of that buffer between those NATO countries and Russia. And obviously, Russia has not been a U.S. ally. Many folks do make that point. Understand that Putin has been there for years, and understanding his ultimate goal. That many times Putin just wants to wait for the next president, just wants to wait for the term of whoever is currently in power to run off. Many people thought that that was one of the reasons why he attacked during the Biden years. He felt that Biden was not going to be a president to really stand up. Now with Trump, Miguel, I want to come to you. How important is this meeting when we talk a little bit about the politics of things? Cesar mentioned that Donald Trump said that within 24 hours, within the first week of his presidency, there would be a ceasefire. That did not happen. Even this week, J.D. Vance has talked that if Ukraine is not sort of a negotiator in good faith or understanding of some of the terms that come out of this negotiation with Putin, that there is a willingness from the United States to step back. They have been a strategic partner when it comes to funding a lot of the arms and just the resources needed for this war. Is this a moment that if Trump walks away, does it make him look as though it's a loss in his political playbook? Does it look like it's not a promise kept? Or is this just the reality of the situation and folks are going to be accepting of that? What's your take here, Miguel?
Well, I agree with Cesar, and when he mentioned that President Trump said that in the first 2 minutes you'll be able to know if the deal's gonna go through or not. But hey, remember what he said? He said that that's what I do. I make deals. If someone can do it, it's him. This is a very, very difficult situation. Obviously, he mentioned it in his campaign that he would do it in 24 hours. He tried doing it a few months ago when he had Zelensky at the White House, and we all saw, the whole world saw what happened there. How Zelensky left the White House, left Washington. But I truly believe that if there's someone that can do this, it's him. Now, but what is very interesting to me is the fact that Zelensky will not be president. It's just going to be President Putin and President Trump. Now, what we all know, in order for a deal to happen, both presidents have to agree on the deal. And there's going to be some negotiating. They have to concede some land or not, like Cesar mentioned it. And we've heard Zelensky mention it repeatedly for 3.5 years. They will not give any land to Russia. And I really hope Trump gets this done. for the good of Ukraine, for the good of Russia, for the good of Europe. And I actually believe that no matter what happens, the left here in America and the United States will find something negative to say. Even if the deal goes through, the left will be like, well, but he said this and this didn't happen. And, well, the bottom line here is that we need peace in the world. And I really believe that if someone can get it done, is the president, Donald Trump.
Well, speaking of Donald Trump, Cesar, one of the conversations that we've been seeing coming out of the White House, but also in the media, is the conversation about a Nobel Peace Prize. It's something that the White House press secretary sort of read a list of accomplishments of why the president should qualify or should be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. It's something that folks have been comparing to President Obama. President Obama, within the first, if I'm not mistaken, 9 months, it might have been 6 to 9 months of his presidency, received the Nobel Peace Prize. Not that he was nominated and then received it. He is a Nobel Prize recipient. You have to remember, in those first 9 months, necessarily many of the things that the president had sort of talked about during his campaign hadn't happened. That Nobel Peace Prize was really just a recognition of a goal that he had. It was a recognition of sort of his posture, his tone in this place, something that many people have criticized, something that President Obama himself, sort of in the acceptance of that Nobel Peace Prize, said that this is a little bit more of a challenge, a sort of something that makes him, encourages him to make sure that he can complete these promises. However, many times when it comes to Donald Trump, many folks point to the Abraham Accords, which was a normalization of relationships between Israel and several Middle Eastern countries. Also, the Armenia and Azerbaijan agreement and peace treaties. There's several more in there that the White House has signaled to. Cesar, what's your point of view in this space? Is this something that Trump should be part of the conversation? Should the Nobel Peace Prize Committee be looking at him as a recipient?
What he just I'm laughing because I'm just thinking about the image of President Trump receiving the Nobel Peace Prize award. I imagine the news, the MSNBCs, the BBC going out crazy seeing President Trump receiving these kind of awards. I mean, to me, I'm gonna be frank with this. I think the Nobel Peace Prize and many other prizes are being very devaluated for the level of people that they have given the award.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna add someone else to that list besides our former President Obama and his former President of Colombia, Santos. He received that award because he broke a peace deal with the terrorist group FARC, and today Colombia is more dangerous than during peacetime. I think, and even Colombia, like me, we voted against that peace deal. But anyway, it did it, and they committed giving the award to the dog. President Trump, he actually has been working to bring peace to many other places. So, should he be part of the conversation? Absolutely. If does he deserve to be nominated? 100%. And plus all the agreements, including the Abraham Accords and Armenian and Azerbaijan, and then also trying to neutralize Iran in the previous weeks. And he ended up broken a peace deal with Russia and Ukraine that I don't even know for how long he's going to love that, because Putin always break his promises. But anyway, let's say they actually broke some sort of peace deals with Ukraine and Russia. President Trump, definitely deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. And again, just commenting that, to me, that kind of award are devaluated, but he definitely deserved it because he will be doing something meaningful and real, and not just a near political posture. That was what happened with President Obama.
Yeah, Miguel, and I want to ask you, the critics say that Donald Trump is not deserving of one because they point to other areas outside of these treaties. They point to the fact that through Doge, many of the U.S. aid has been cut off to several places across the country, across the globe, I'll add. They talked also about his record of sort of the deportation of individuals within the country. The critics have a long list of why they believe he shouldn't. When you hear these critics, do you put weight behind some of these reasons, or do you think it's sort of still the justification around the other areas that the president has worked on justify him having this Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, it's in the name of the title, Nobel Peace Prize, right? In baseball, if you're playing baseball and you go to bat 5 times during the game, and you make a hit the 5 times, that's a perfect percentage, right? I think Mr. Trump has he's what, 7 from 7, 7 deals, and he's got them done, 7 peace deals. So of course, critics are always going to criticize. They're always going to look for something, even if it's something completely apart from the peace deals. Now, Barack Obama had 0, absolutely none peace deals. Mr. Trump has 7. He's working on them. I honestly didn't see Mr. Biden or his administration trying to end the war with Ukraine and Russia. I didn't see them pushing hard. I actually think that if they would have met, if Biden and Putin would have met, I think Biden would have been talking about ice cream flavors instead of making the peace deal. And thank God we have Trump as a president, because if Kamala would be in the White House, it'd be chaos right now. Absolutely. But I think that there's a saying, I'm going to say it in Spanish, they don't say it in English. Nadie es profeta en su propia tierra. Right? No one is a prophet in his own land. That was said about 2,000 years ago. And that's what we're seeing with President Trump. It's sad, but it's true. It's the reality that people from other countries, like the president from Azerbaijan and Armenia, see him as a Nobel Prize winner, and here in America, they don't even consider it.
Yeah, I think this conversation we'll see how it plays out. What is the ultimate ending to this conversation? But I do agree with Cesar that the prize does seem to have been devalued with the sort of list of individuals who have received it, where it seems that the merit wasn't completely there. I want to turn our attention now to something a little bit more on the domestic side happening in the United States. The battle around gerrymandering in Texas continues. Dozens of legislators, Democrat legislators in the Texas Assembly have decided to left, and they continue outside of the state. There's a lot of critics saying that they're not completing their job, that they should be there to debate, to be able to vote, to be able to allow the legislator to continue as business. But the conversation has continued or escalated, I would say, to other states like Illinois, New York, California, Maryland, North Carolina, saying that they will also take action, that their legislators also have the power to redistrict what is seen as maps that only should be through the norms being done every decade, not mid-decade. Again, a lot of critics on one side and a lot of people saying that on the Republican side, it's understood because of the shift of population in places like Texas. Many people left California, left New York, Chicago, and moved to places like Texas and like Florida. People also point to the fact that there was an error that was acknowledged in the census, where places like Texas saw at least 500,000 individuals not counted, which means that there is going to continue to be a fight of this map. Miguel, I'll continue with you. Is there any way that Democrats can win on this issue? Because we have seen that they have left the state in the past, and all it did was extended the timeline. They eventually had to come back. They do not have a majority in Texas. Is there any way that Democrats do win on this topic?
I don't think so. Honestly, I don't see them winning on this. I actually think that's the reason why they're doing this, because they know they're lost. And like you said, they're just playing it. They're playing the time game. But it's just funny how the actual name, gerrymandering, comes from a Democrat from over 2 centuries ago. The fifth vice president of this country was the one that came up with this. He started practicing this, and the Democrats have been doing this for many years. Like I said, over 200 years ago. So I honestly, I mean, I live in Texas. I live in South Texas. I see what's going on. A lot of people are upset that the legislators left the state. And it's just amazing that a couple of days ago, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is having a press conference. And in the background, you see some of those legislators from Texas backing him up, because he's talking about doing the same thing in the state of California, right? And it's just very, very upsetting to see legislators from the state of Texas that should be serving their people backing up the governor of the state of California.
Yeah, I do find it interesting, even within your point, that politicians, it seems a lot of finger pointing, right? If we're honest, that folks point to the original, the governor of Massachusetts, Jerry, where the name comes from, gerrymandering. It's also interesting that Texas is now taking this on, and the Texas legislators are in a place like Illinois, which is one of the most gerrymandered states. They have a record. They've received the F grading from a commission that studies how gerrymandered these areas are. It says that some people are reporting that there is a lot of risk in this, in places like Texas, where if you were to redraw the map, your margins of victory for some current Republicans might become so thin that it puts other seats in danger. How much have the Texas legislator, how much has Donald Trump, who's the one calling for this, thought through some of these risks? The risk of also just places like California, New York, adding seats into this place. Do you think this is a well thought strategy? Do you think there's a reason why they might pull back? How does this finish, in your opinion?
That's one angle, and I think is every seat is always risky if you don't have a great candidate. If you had a good candidate, I've seen races where the draw benefit Democrats, and I see Republicans winning. So I think if you had a good candidate, you're gonna win. Now, but let me give you my point of view related to this. And Democrats are presenting this as if Republicans are the evil here in this red districting maps. Reality is that even in NBC within the past weekend, Governor Pritzker from Illinois was challenged about his own map in Illinois, which is insane. It's crazy. He didn't fight back when he was challenged that actually your map is gerrymandered. Like, very clear, you guys are doing this on purpose. And on Play Night Show with this guy, Stephen Colbert, he also said, well, the map was drawn by a kid of 7 years old. So he was kind of laughing and admitting that the map is crazy. The argument from this guy is that it's not done during the 10 years period. So they are not arguing that they doing this kind of maps for their own vanity. What they don't like is the Republicans now are challenging the status quo on the way that they do this. And let me go further. In New York, I was seeing this guy, Scott, I forget the name, but there is a congresswoman in New York that literally, she said, the more people we have in our state, undocumented, the more seats we can get for our Democrats. So that's the reason why they like to count in the census undocumented people, and that they always offer sanctuary cities, because the idea that they protecting the immigrant is false. What they want is more people in those areas so they can justify the seats that they are getting from the real borders and people who live there. And this is funny because they present United States as a country that are racist, that don't protect people, that they don't count human lives, blah, blah, blah. But let me tell you where they don't count undocumented people. Francia, France, Canada, United Kingdom, and many other countries that actually leftists like to present like countries that they are uh, protect or decaying or more racist, human life, blah, blah, blah. Pinnacles of the left, right? Like, again, rants. They don't count undocumented people in the census. That's common sense. So going back to this point, when this congresswoman in New York admits openly, public, like we're doing this, because the more people we have, the more seats we had in the Congress, is to me is insane. So going back to the Republican, I agree. I think it's important to revise this, not because it's something that has been doing for years. It means that it did. I think the status quo has to change. I think the people who needs to be counted in this country is the people who vote, who pay taxes, but also who vote. Can vote. If you are a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, you should be counting the census. But if you are illegal or undocumented, I don't think you should be counted.
Yeah, the topic of the census has surfaced again with Donald Trump saying that he's asked the department in charge of putting forth the census to not count either, if I'm not mistaken, the options are either to not count folks who are undocumented or to include a question that either if you're a citizen or not. Let's remember this is something that the president tried during his first term, but was held back through the Supreme Court. Again, there's a very specific nuance. They're allowed to add new questions, but the court said that the reason behind it was one that wasn't justified. I believe the approach that the administration has taken this time around is one where they understand that the justification has to align with the question. They believe that being able to do that this time around, the new census will possibly include a question that asks about the citizenship of the individual. Miguel, there are others who say that there is a little bit of a danger in this space because the count of individuals, one is it's in the Constitution. The Constitution does says that the census will count all individuals. It doesn't specify the legal status of those individuals, citizens versus resident, versus someone on a visa versus someone who has no documentation at all. But they also said that the danger is in the fact that funding is allocated to states for various purposes that is based on the individuals who are there. But obviously what Cesar was talking about is the fact that also congressional seats are picked, or the number of congressional seats are applied due to the population in one area. As Cesar pointed, many of those left-leaning states do tend to welcome more with open arms undocumented immigrants, increasing the chances of them having more seats. Do you think some of these critics, Miguel, have a little bit of a point?
No, although, listen, like I told you, I live in the valley, and the Rio Grande Valley. I live in by McAllen, Texas. And the past administration was flooding the country with illegal immigrants. Now, I actually live about 2 miles away from the river, from the border. And I used to go to the gas station, and I would see the buses filling with gas and then go to the other side of the river, picking up the people, taking them to the bus station and sending them on the bus and in airplanes. Now, if you wanted to travel out of McAllen and you look for an airplane ticket to buy a ticket, and you get the option to pick your seats, you'd see that you have like 20 seats available the day before your flight, right? And by the time you get to the airport the next morning, it was overbooked. And when you get on the airplane, it was full of illegal immigrants. Who funded this? The past administration. They did this in all the border cities like San Diego, El Paso. Like Tucson is not on the border, but is the nearest one with an airport to Nogales, Arizona. Laredo, Bronzeville, Harlingen, McAllen. And it's just, they're just trying to to do the power grabbing. They just try to flirt with the. I honestly don't think that it should be counted, because when people here in the United States speak of illegal immigrants, most of the people just think of Mexicans, Mexicanos, right? Because it's the neighboring country. But you have people not only from Central America, South America, but from Africa, Europe, and Asia, and you don't know what they're here for. Now you're gonna count them as U.S. citizens, or not, maybe not U.S. citizens, but with rights to vote. They will not be voting for the best interest of the country, and it's very dangerous. And I think something should be done about it.
I'm gonna add something to Miguel. I don't think the founding fathers, when they were writing the Constitution, they were thinking or thought that a crazy Biden will exist in 2020 and it would open the gates of the border just to let everybody in. I don't think, and I think if they wake up to the day, they will revisit the Constitution and specifically say U.S. citizens and permanent residents only.
Yeah, this is definitely a topic that will continue in the headlines, because Donald Trump does understand, his administration has said that they understand that the first term, there were a lot of legal challenges and that this is not an easy process. This is something that likely will be challenged by Democrat states, meaning that it has the potential to be in the courts again and potentially making it all the way to the Supreme Court. So we'll continue to follow this topic. I do want to turn again now to forward affairs, going back and now focusing on Colombia. A lot of news coming out of Colombia. Just yesterday, we saw that Miguel Uribe passed after a shooting that happened approximately 2 months ago. Miguel Uribe, a senator of Colombia, but also a former potential president. He was running, he was campaigning, he was seen as someone who, again, had an opportunity to possibly become the next president of Colombia, was shot in the head. About 2 months he was in the hospital, again, passing yesterday. Cesar, I want to start with you. For those who are unfamiliar with the current situation and the politics of Colombia, who was Miguel Uribe and why is this such a impactful story to what's happening in the country at the moment?
He was a 39 years old of Colombia, someone who served the country in many different positions. He was the a council member. He ran court, mayor of Bogota. He was, until he passed away, he was done. Besides being a senator, also a candidate for the presidency of Colombia. But also he was a victim of the violence when he was a kid, because the violence, the drug cartels killed his mom when he was, I think, 24 years old. The same age his son today is losing him. And so it's a tragic moment for Colombians. It's a tragic moment for democracy in Colombia. It's a punch in the faith of all Colombians who wants to live in peace. But all of this is due not only for the bad administration of the current president of Colombia, a former guerrilla member, Petro, but also because former President Juan Manuel Santos is the one through the peace process who allowed to sit in the Congress today many of the biggest violators of the human rights in Colombia, former terrorist guerrilla members that didn't serve a single day in prison and now are part of the legislative body in Colombia. To me, that's insane. To me, that's crazy. There are many guerrilla members or former guerrilla members, to me, are the same thing, that out of the disagreement with Santos is that the government give them a payment monthly just to avoid them to go back to be a criminals. But now this president, Petro, has been dividing the country more with a very open narrative that we saw in the past in former governments like Chavez in Venezuela, or former criminals in Venezuela like Chavez, or Cuba with the Castros, Diaz-Canel, is the same playbook. And the playbook that they want to continue the division, but also, and although we're talking about what is happening or what happened with the murder of Senator Miguel Uribe, now there's another potential conflict that he is trying to create, which is a war between Colombia and Peru for a piece of land in the Amazons that is already explained because the river deviates the natural course. Sometimes it changes the nature of the little piece of land where there was an agreement in 1937 or 1934. And for the past presidencies, nobody has been talking about that. But this president, this guerrilla member, former guerrilla member, find out that this is a potential problem for Colombia. And he is challenging that piece of island that for years has been for Peru. Peru has been there. And what is behind all of this is not the supposed depending the Colombian territory or Colombian borders, but actually to find a way to create a war to suspend the elections for next year. That's the way they work. That's the way they try to find an excuse to stay in power. And that's the way he's trying to do now. He's trying to find a way to stay in power in Colombia, and and there are many other candidates that are challenging Tetra. I hope next year Colombia go out the masses and vote for a new leadership and finally kick out this guy from Casa de Nariño that he's bringing so many crime in Colombia.
Cesar, and I want to ask you because it seems that the situation in Colombia just kind of goes from worse and worse. There's also the ex-president Uribe, not to be confused with Miguel Uribe, who now has been sentenced to 12 years in prison. Something that's very different in Latin America than the United States is that ex-presidents tend to stay in a political position that's very instrumental to the political party. If I'm not mistaken, Uribe has played that role when it comes to the conservative party and the conservative movement in Colombia, a opposition of the current president, which you mentioned. Petro, what's your analysis around Uribe? Is this also something that's politically motivated, or is there justification behind the 12 years in prison?
Well, clearly it's politically motivated. It's kind of an award that President Petro is giving to all the radicals, leftists in Colombia, to all the criminals in Colombia that put him in jail, to President Uribe, who actually was the only president who's fought back criminal. Let me back in history. In 2002, actually, when I immigrated from Colombia, early 2000 or the end of 1999, that was the peak of the violence in Colombia with drug cartels and guerrilla members. Colombia was almost a freeing state. And President Uribe took presidency in 2002. And for the 8 years that he stood in power, he pretty much cleaned the country. He gave the confidence to the Colombians to go out again and travel through the country. He gave confidence to the international investment to return to Colombia and invest in Colombia. He provide them confidence, not only Colombians, but people who wanted to visit Colombia. And he put in jail many terrorist people. In fact, he sent to the United States a bunch of other drug cartels and members of the guerrillas to the United States. They don't forget that. And now putting President Uribe in jail is obviously revenge from those groups. And President Petro's kind of a war to those criminals that now are uh, uh, they are in a country creating more terror and chaos. And one of the things that and why is important this topic, Wadi? It's important because it's not just related to Colombians living in Colombia. It's because he now give a piece of land of Colombia to Venezuela. To Venezuela now is Maduro, the criminal Maduro, the person who had $50 million reward in this hand
Yeah.
for being a leader of the Cartel of los Soles. He's the one in charge of protecting that franc, which is at least at the border of Colombia and Venezuela, supposedly to bring peace in the area. But that's the area where all terrorist groups like FARC, ELN, plus the Mexican cartels, plus some members of Hezbollah are there. So that's important for national security in the United States because Petro is colluding with all the criminals to destabilize the region. And Lord, let's not forget that Colombia for years and years until now has been the best ally in Latam for the United States.
Yeah, Cesar, if I can add to that, it's interesting to read on how you've mentioned. I mean, many of us remember the Bush years con el Plan Colombia, where there really was this focus on transforming in the partnership with ex-presidente Uribe, and now we're seeing a country that is governed by a leftist president who views people like Maduro, like the Castro regime, as allies and not the United States. Another country, kind of switching topics, is Mexico. Mexico's another place where historically there have been, there are still those strong ties, not just in commerce, but on the battle when we think of the cartels. Miguel, I want to go to you. You're in the Rio Grande Valley. You're in sort of the front lines when it comes to when we see the traffic of humans, but the traffic of drugs as well. This week, the president, through the Pentagon, signs a directive saying that there is going to be allowed the use of military or forces in Latin America against drug cartels. Marco Rubio did go on to kind of specify that this directive allows them to sort of gather intelligence and use certain agencies around intelligence, signaling that not necessarily there was going to be the use of military force, but maybe just the assets in that space. Miguel, do you see this as a necessary call to action from the president? Because there are many who say that this kind of directive could lead to the U.S. sending troops to a foreign nation that has not asked for these troops, specifically even in Mexico, where La Presidenta Actual has said that should not happen. Again, do you think this is something that's necessary, or is it possibly a step too close to forces on the ground?
Yeah, well, there's actually two things that are very worrying. Number one, I think, is human trafficking. The children are being trafficked, and number two is the fentanyl. It's killing a lot of people here in America, and nobody's talking about it. And, the news outlets are not talking about it. They're not mentioning anything, and it's killing thousands of people. It's a pandemic, and the Mexican president, Ms. Claudia Sheinbaum, she has repeatedly stated she will not do anything about it. Now, yes, President Trump has signed that order, and I think there's ways of doing things. Maybe not necessarily sending troops, but we've seen it in the past. Cesar, I remember back in 1990 when President from Panama was taken out, and Noriega, yes, he played the same game Maduro is playing right now. Maduro said, "Come and get me." That's the same thing Noriega said 35 years ago. And what happened? Bush Sr. sent troops, and they got him out. They sent it to the United States to face the law. And it's worrying in Mexico because like I repeat, the Mexican president said she will not do anything about it. the border town on the other side from here, and the Mexican side, is Reynosa, Tamaulipas. Now, it's very interesting because less than a week ago, maybe like 5 days ago, someone was murdered. Era un fiscal del estado de Tamaulipas. He was murdered in broad daylight. I don't know if you heard about this. He was murdered during a rush hour in Reynosa. They threw a grenade into his vehicle. He opened the door, got out, and they shot him in front of bystanders and people doing traffic. And when she was asked, she gives her press conferences every morning, and she was asked about this. And with a smile, she replied, "We're not here to talk about that. Ask the governor of Tamaulipas about the security in Tamaulipas. It's getting out of hand." I just saw that a mayor from the state of Michoacan just threatened the president, and he told her, "If you don't do anything about the cartels, about the criminals in our state, we're gonna rise in arms." So it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen in Mexico. But I definitely think that Donald Trump doing something about this is very important, and it was coming. It was about time, because it's out of order. They're kidnapping people every day. Dozens of people are disappearing in Mexico each day. And like I tell you, the Mexican government is not doing anything about it.
Yeah, it seems like it's not just the people of Mexico saying that they need internal support and that they are sick and tired of the situation over there, but obviously this administration signaling that they understand the impact of what's allowed in Mexico and how that impacts here in the United States. So this is something that I don't believe this administration will back down on. Well, there, folks, you have it. That has been our show for today. Again, this is the game where we analyze politics play by play. Special thanks to Miguel and Cesar for joining us, and we welcome you to come here next time. We'll continue with our political analysis.